There are 64 bomb sites in Siege ranked. In today's video, I'll be teaching you how to set up the most common ones that you'll be defending in the game. The first of which being top floor Oregon. First of all, let's go over all of the reinforcements. First, get the kids wall on the left side, then reinforce right next to the rotate on the other wall, then get the two main walls, just like that, get the leftmost trophy wall, get the leftmost armory wall, and then get the two attic walls. Now that we've gone over all of the reinforcements, let's go over the rotates and head holes. First, you'll put holes all alongside the trophy wall, and then you want a kids to attic rotate. You want feet holes next to the big window, with an optional rotate here. Then you want optional head holes on white. And if you plan on playing inside of armory, you can put holes on the armory wall, with more holes on the master wall. And just like that, you've set up the top floor of Oregon. Next, let's move on to the basement. Going over the reinforcements, you want one on the right side of elbow. Then you want one on the right side of this closet wall. Reinforce the left side of freezer. Reinforce the right side of box wall. And then reinforce this double wall. Then go upstairs. Reinforce the meeting hatch. Reinforce the main hatch. And reinforce the freezer hatch. In terms of holes, put head holes next to the freezer reinforcement. Put holes next to the closet reinforcement as well. Put a rotate in between the sites. Make a rotate into elbow. Make holes on the top of the site wall. Make head holes in the box wall. And that's it for all of the necessary site setup for the basement of Oregon. Now let's move on to kitchen and dining. First of all, get the dining double wall here. Then come into kids and reinforce the hatch. Also, make sure that you have your kitchen walls reinforced as well. Reinforce the single wall at kitchen as well. Then come into shower and reinforce the right side of this wall here. Now the last few reinforcements are kind of personal preference depending on how you're playing, if you're roaming, anchoring, whatever it may be. But I personally like to reinforce this wall here. And then I'll reinforce these two hallway to shower walls right here. To show you why I do this, let's go over the rotates and holes for the site. First of all, make a rotate on the left side of this wall. Because you reinforce these two walls here, you can safely rotate like this without having to worry about the hallway or the window. Next, make head holes all across these walls. Now you can sit in the hallway and hold an angle onto the staircase right here, while also being able to sit in shower and hold an angle onto anybody coming into small tower. Then make a rotate on either the left or preferably the right side of this wall. And then open this hatch here if you're planning on rotating through it later. But that's actually pretty much it for this bomb site. It's super simple. You just hold shower and make sure they don't take control of the comms room. A site much more complicated to hold is meeting and kitchen on Oregon as well. First of all, reinforce this wall on the left side of split and this wall on the right side of split. Make sure these two attic walls upstairs are reinforced. But before you do the second one, make sure that you make yourself a rotate so that you can reinforce it from this side instead. The reason you do that is because your next reinforcement is actually going to be on the kitchen hatch. Then you're going to do something pretty weird, and that's going to be opening up the attic hatch. Then come into kitchen and reinforce this kitchen wall here, and then reinforce this single wall here. The reason I like reinforcing this and not put a rotate here is because if you put a rotate here or head holes, they can get on that door and get a deep look into anybody rotating through the sites. So I always reinforce this instead. Then reinforce this wall here, and reinforce the wall next to it unless you want to put feet holes on it. And then your last reinforcement can pretty much go anywhere, but personally I like to put it on this wall here, because next I like to make a rotate next to that wall. Speaking of rotates, let's talk about our next one, which is going to be on the right side of this wall. The reason I make it on the right and not on the left is because if you do it on the left, they can see you from this double door, but now because I made it on the right, they can't actually see me, and if I want to cross, I can just sprint, and 9 times out of 10, they don't have the reaction time to shoot me that way, which is why I always put it on the left instead of the right. And then finally, open up this hatch here. This will make it to where you have a rotate option out of meeting, and then also if you have a guy with a nitro cell, he can sit here and deny the plant on the stage. Now that was just one out of 16 different maps that I'll be going over in today's video. The next of which being Clubhouse, and the first bomb side of Clubhouse being CC and Cache. First, let's go over the reinforcements. You want to get the main CC wall here. You want to get the left side of the rafters wall here. The middle wall on the red wall here. The Cache single wall. And the con single wall. Do not, I repeat, do not reinforce either of the Logi walls. I see way too many low earloop players doing this. The reason that it's bad is because you need to save the last final 4 reinforcements for these garage walls. The first 2 on these walls, and the second 2 on these walls. Now let's go over the holes for this site. First of all, you want head holes right here. Do not make a rotate here. If you make a rotate here, any attacker that takes rafters can easily use this rotate to get to the plant. With everybody playing the new reworked Monty, this is an increasingly common issue that you'll have to face as a defender, so don't give them that option and just make these head holes instead. Other holes you should make include a hole right here and a hole right here. This hole here allows you to stand on top of this desk and watch the rafters window, while also allowing you to watch the CC window if you're on the desk or off the desk. Next, put head holes on the right side of this reinforcement for red, and a crouching rotate on the left side of the reinforcement. And that's it for this site. But let's move on to the basement instead. First, go into dirt, and get these two dirt walls. Then come upstairs and get the kitchen hatch, get the bar hatch, and get the stock hatch. Then make your way into blue and get the middle blue wall here, and get the right armory wall here. Your final reinforcements will go on the right and middlemost church triple wall. You can optionally use your final reinforcement on this wall here, but instead of doing that, you optionally as well can put head holes next to it. Which brings me into my next point, the holes and rotates for this site. First of all, make a rotate next to the reinforcement you put in blue earlier. Then put feed holes on the other side of this reinforcement. Then break 2 chairs on this table, hop up on top of the table, and put a high hole next to the reinforcement just like this. With this hole here, you can now watch the secret stairs. A lot of new players will never expect that angle. Then, make a super high hole on this wall here. A lot of new players think this is supposed to be a vaultable rotate, and while it can be used for that way, it's actually meant so that people in church can watch the hatch. If you still want a rotate that's usable though, you can put a crouching rotate next to this rotate right here. Then, put feed holes all along this wall, or optionally a rotate if they rush through this wall. And then, optionally as well, you can put a rotate on the dummies wall here. And that is it for the basement site setup. Let's move on to the next most popular site, which is bedroom and gym. First of all, let's go over the reinforcements. You want to reinforce the jacuzzi walls, reinforce the leftmost bathroom single wall, reinforce the second middlemost wall in gym. To most players that will seem weird, but I'll come back to it later. Reinforce the con single wall, reinforce the left side logi wall here, reinforce the CC wall, then reinforce these 2 cache walls. Now the only issue with this setup here is that you're not reinforcing this wall. If you don't reinforce this wall, they can get a long angle from rafters into cache. But assuming you have a castle on your team, which a lot of the times is the case, you can just put a castle barricade on this door and not have to worry about it. Something else castle is great at is making holes, which is the next thing that's on this site. First of all, you want head holes all along this wall here. Then instead of putting a rotate on the left side of the red wall, I actually recommend putting a tall rotate on the right side. The reason I do this is because if I'm using this rotate as an attacker, I can't really see into master as much, and I can't even see onto the logi rotate, or much into con. But if I put a rotate here, I would have way more access and line of sight into con, and I just don't like having that. Also, having a rotate here as a defender makes it to where if I want to contest people who are in cache, it's a lot easier for me to do so than if I were to do it from this rotate. I'm also not exposed to this window if I want to rotate from this rotate, whereas if I was on this rotate, I would be exposed to that window. It's really personal preference. I like having it here. You don't have to put it here. It's whatever. Next, make a vaultable rotate into logi here. Then make feet holes all along the gym wall, with a rotate on the right and a rotate on the left, with feet holes next to that rotate as well. Then you'll want to rotate into bathroom that's vaultable. You make it vaultable so they can't shoot you through this drone hole in the bathroom. And then you want a crouchable rotate in logi like this. I don't recommend putting it all the way on the right, kind of like I did here, because they can shoot you from the master window. And I also don't recommend putting it on the left right here, because they can still shoot you from the gym window. But if you put it in the middle, like this, they won't shoot you from the master window. And because you reinforced this wall earlier, they can't shoot you from the gym window, which is why I had you reinforce that. It also makes gym semi-playable in the late game if they're doing a con push over and you have that one guy trying to clutch around. And because there's still feet holes everywhere, if they try to plant, you can easily just, go around the reinforcement and it won't matter. Finally, pop the gym hatch here, and you're all set to defend this bomb site. Next up would be bar and games, but nobody really plays this site, so I'm not really going to waste time going over it. Next up is chalet, the first bomb site of which is going to be the top floor. First of all, reinforce the 2 office walls here. Then reinforce either the right or leftmost wall in office. It's completely personal preference. After that, reinforce the left side of this wall here to cover your rotate that we'll talk about later. Reinforce these 2 bathroom walls. Reinforce the wall next to that. Reinforce the leftmost solar wall. Then reinforce this library single. And then reinforce this library single. Now, normally I would tell players to reinforce this wall here so they can't get an angle into office. But because I reinforced the wall on the left and not the right, you don't have to worry about that. Which is why I put an extra reinforcement in bathroom that I'll talk about later. But for now, let's go over the holes for this site. First of all, you want a hole right here. This will allow you to get a pixel angle onto the library window right here. Having a hole here allows you to see the K9 double window while being behind this reinforcement that protects you from that library window. Then you'll want head holes along either side of this reinforced wall here. You'll want to rotate on the right side of the office wall, or rotate into the closet, with an optional hole right here if you want to be able to watch the door from this rotate right here. You want feet holes across the solarium wall here, and head holes across this bathroom wall. Optionally, you could do feet holes here. I just like this aggressive angle onto the window. With these 3 reinforcements, it makes it way easier for you to sit in bathroom without having to worry about the piano window or the bathroom window trying to wallbang you. This wall also allows you to rotate out of closet into master without having to worry about the bathroom window, and this wall makes it to where you don't have to worry about the 2 solar windows. The feet holes here actually let you see people walking up solar, which just makes playing inside of that closet a lot easier for you. But now that we've gone over the top floor site, let's go over the basement. First of all, reinforce these 2 wine walls. Then reinforce these 2 garage hallway walls. Then get this small garage wall here. And then obviously don't forget about the main wall. Then go upstairs and get the fireplace hatch. And then get the dining hatch. For the final reinforcement, come into stock and reinforce this stock single wall. If you don't, a lot of Ash players will rush into stock and break open this wall, drop down main stairs, and get a bunch of free kills early in the round, which is even easier for them to do if you have the default rotate, which is right here. Funnily enough, that's really the only necessary site setup that you need in terms of holes on this site. Now, let's move on to the next bomb site, which is actually going to be kitchen. First of all, let's go over the reinforcements. You want to reinforce these 2 main walls here, reinforce the wall next to that one, then reinforce this trophy wall here, or you can reinforce the one on the right, or neither, completely personal preference. Then reinforce the rightmost wall here, or the left one, completely personal preference. Then reinforce these 2 bathroom walls, these 2 office walls, and then reinforce the right side solar wall. Now you might be wondering, well, now you don't have reinforcements for the hatch right here. Well, that's because you're actually going to open it. The whole point of you reinforcing these 2 bathroom walls is because you're going to be playing upstairs very heavily. If you put head holes right here, with a rotate right next to it, you can now hold super tight angles into piano while having a rotate right here that actually helps you hold piano in case they're aggressively trying to take the upstairs. This solar wall here allows you to put the feet holes I was talking about earlier in case they try to rush in trophy, rush up the solar stairs, and try to take you out from there. And then these 2 office walls allow you to have a rotate right here next to the open hatch that you can use to actually contest office in case they try to take vert early on for the site wall. Because you're playing vert so heavily and you're trying to really contest the upstairs, having this hatch open makes it to where late round, when you want to give up upstairs to hold the bomb site, you can easily just rotate back down. Speaking of holes though, next let's go over the head holes for the site. First of all, you want head holes on this wall here. This will make it to where you can hold a tight angle onto the trophy wall, or play inside of trophy and hold the hatch drop. You'll then want head holes on either this wall, or more realistically actually this wall, really is personal preference though. You'll want to sight rotate on the left side of this wall here, that you can use to crouch behind this half wall in case they're in this hallway. And then you'll want feet holes for said hallway as well, so you can sit behind this half wall and kill people who are walking up. Then the rest of these walls you can do literally whatever you want with. Whether it be putting head holes here, even head holes all the way across here or next to your rotate. Those are pretty dangerous and aggressive, but like I said, it really is completely personal preference. The more aggressive head holes you have, the more angles you can hold on windows or even the hatch drop. So it's up to you how you want to set the site up, which is why there's so much controversy on how to set the site up, because there's just so much variance that you can do with it. It's a very, very strat heavy bomb site. A site a bit less more complicated though would actually be bar games. First of all, let's go over the reinforcements. You want to reinforce the rightmost games wall here. Then come upstairs. You're going to reinforce the bar hatch here, the library wall here, the box library wall here, and these 2 office walls. Then come downstairs and reinforce this rightmost dining wall. If you don't do this, they can actually open this wall up, and all the way from inside dining, they can watch blue stairs, which people play on heavily to defend this site, so I always love reinforcing this. You'll also reinforce the other 45 wall here. After shooting the radio, then you're also going to reinforce the stock wall. Now, the final reinforcement is like literally completely optional. You can put it wherever you want. Personally, though, if I'm holding library, I like to reinforce this wall here. It just makes it so much more safe to play inside of this box if you're contesting this window or this window, because you don't have to worry about people getting on this balcony to shoot you through this wall. Next up, let's go over the holes for this site. Obviously, you want a hole on this wall, stated for obvious reasons I stated earlier. Then you want feed holes across this wall here. These holes allow anybody sitting on the fireplace stairs to shoot anybody trying to open up the office wall from inside office. Then you're going to open up the site hatch here, not only so you can rotate down at late round like the other bomb site, but also so that the stock player can watch anybody hopping in the double window. Next, you want feet holes on this wall here, which allows your bar player to see anybody walking in through mud or anybody trying to walk up the basement of blue stairs. Then you'll want to rotate right here, head holes next to your reinforcement, head holes next to those head holes, which is optional, which allow you to sit inside the stock and hold a tight angle onto the actual site door. But this is a double-edged sword, so like I said, these head holes are optional. But that's it for this bomb site and for this map entirely. Now let's move on to a much less complicated and more familiar map, Coastline. First of all, let's talk about hookah and billiards. In terms of reinforcements, make sure that you reinforce either side of this door here. Then reinforce the quad wall. Reinforce this middlemost wall right here so people can't get on this window and get a long angle into sight. Reinforce this leftmost wall here to protect your player on the hookah rotate. And then your final two reinforcements are optional. If you plan on playing inside of VIP, you can reinforce these two VIP walls. But if you plan on not playing inside of VIP, I recommend actually reinforcing these two walls. If you don't reinforce these two walls, they can open up this wall here and get a long angle onto anybody inside of the site or anybody rotating through these holes here. So I always reinforce these. Finally, I always recommend barricading this window as well, because if you don't, they can get on the roof and have a long angle onto anybody in this hallway. Now, let's go over holes. You don't want holes here unless it's late round and you're trying to pressure anybody in 90, but you do want holes next to that on this wall here. You can either make them full head holes or just a hole here. Either way, it makes it to where your hookah player can actually watch the bomb angle here if they're doing an aqua push. Another thing that helps with an aqua push is feet holes all along the aqua wall. Then you'll want to rotate into hookah, obviously. You can either make this crouchable or vaultable, personal preference that way. And then you'll want to cool vibes rotate. And that's actually it for this site. Now let's move downstairs and talk about kitchen and service. First of all, reinforce 2 out of 4 of this quad wall. Then reinforce the rightmost kitchen wall here. Reinforce this triple wall. Reinforce this wall right here in bathroom. This reinforcement, if you're wondering, makes it to where they can't get on the service door here with a glass and shoot anybody behind the wine rack. Then reinforce this sunrise wall here. If they get on this wall, they can get a long angle onto your rotate and the bomb chassis, which is pretty bad. And then your final 2 reinforcements are going to go on this VIP wall if you plan on roaming here. Then, for the same reason as the last site, barricade this double window. For the site holes, make feet holes along this wall here. Then make a rotate between the 2 sites. Put feet holes along this wall. This allows you to actually deny the people planting in the default spot here if you're flanking from the bathroom door. And then make a vaultable rotate on the rightmost bathroom wall. And that is completely it for this site. Next up, let's go over penthouse and theater. Your first 2 reinforcements are going to go on the VIP walls here. Then reinforce this middle wall connecting to penthouse. Reinforce this leftmost wall leading into 90. Reinforce these 2 VIP walls. Then go into theater and reinforce these 2 theater walls. Reinforce this leftmost theater wall as well. And then finally, reinforce the left wall next to this doorway. A lot of people like to make a rotate on this wall. Do not do this. They can easily see that from the window, but a rotate they can't see is a rotate on the right side of this wall here. Now you can rotate and you're actually safe from the window. Speaking of rotate, let's go over our next one, which is actually going to be behind the dresser. It's behind the dresser, so again, the window can't see it, so make it actually super slim. This is enough to rotate through. You don't need to make it so wide that the window can see you, because you want to be behind the dresser the entire time so you can quick peek it and then shoot people if they're on it. Then make head holes next to this wall, so people in 90 can contest your VIP wall, and then make head holes on this wall, so you can sit on this wall and contest the window, or look onto the double door if you're actually inside of penthouse. Then make feet holes next to this wall so you can watch the hallway. And then optionally, you can put a rotate next to this reinforcement. This rotate allows you to hold control of 90 if anyone tries to push up the hookah hallway a lot better. And because you have a reinforcement right next to it, you don't have to worry about getting shot when you come back to site. Finally, I recommend barricading the luggage window if you know no one's roaming here. This is purely just for information in case you're actually roaming in this hallway. I also recommend barricading this window for the exact same reasons we talked about in the last 2. And then if you have any information-based gadget, like a proximity alarm or a barbed wire, I recommend putting it on this staircase, again, if you're holding 90. But that is it for this site. I'm not going to go over Sunrise and Blue Bar because no one really plays here, so let's just go to the next map. Now let's talk about a much more utility heavy map, and that being Nighthaven Labs, the first bomb site of which being the top floor. First of all, reinforce these two IT walls here. Then reinforce this connector wall here. Reinforce the right side of this wall. Reinforce the connector walls. Reinforce the meeting wall. Reinforce the rightmost wall in sight behind a pillar. And then make a vaulting rotate next to this wall here. This rotate is great, because if you have anybody tricking this wall like a kid or a bandit, they can trick this wall. But the second they get flushed out by people in this hallway, he or you can back up here and then reinforce this wall later. Then you want a wall reinforce right here, and your final reinforcement is optional. You can either save it for this wall here, or if you don't plan on reinforcing that, you can reinforce this rafters wall like this. Next to these two reinforcements, you're going to put the first holes down, making a rotate on this wall. You can also optionally just put head holes here as well, completely up to you. Then put head holes on this wall, put feet holes on this wall, and that is it for the site setup on the top floor. It's super simple. Now let's move to the basement. First, reinforce this wall here, reinforce the main walls, reinforce the right side of this wall here, then go upstairs and reinforce the storage hall hatch, reinforce the bottom rafters hatch, and reinforce the vending hatch. Then come back into site and reinforce the left side of this wall here, reinforce the right side of this wall, and reinforce the left side of this wall. Now for the holes on site, you're going to put head holes next to this reinforcement here, put feet holes next to this reinforcement, put feet holes on this wall, and optionally you can put a rotate on this wall. You also should put feet holes all along these two walls here. And that is it for the basement. To wrap things up on Nighthaven, let's finalize it with kitchen and dining. First of all, reinforce these two cafeteria walls. Then reinforce these two walls. Reinforce the right side of this wall, or the left side, personal preference, and reinforce these two site walls. Then make your way upstairs. When the prep phase ends, you can tear down this barricade and run outside to reinforce this hatch. Then come back in and re-barricade this window. Finally, if you want to roam up here, I recommend reinforcing the meeting wall. And the last reinforcement is optional. You can either reinforce the left side of this wall if you're roaming upstairs so they can't get you on the staircase, or you can reinforce the site wall if you don't want to put holes on it, or you could even reinforce this wall just to make it a little bit harder for them to rotate. Now for the holes on site, put head holes next to this reinforcement in kitchen, put feet holes or head holes on this wall here, and then if you're playing vert, you want to make holes along this floor here, just so that you can watch the door into site. And because nobody votes to play on this site for whatever reason, let's move on to the next map. A map that I'm sure you're more familiar with though is actually Villa, where we're going to start on Aviator and Games. To go over the reinforcements first, reinforce the left side of the Aviator wall. Then reinforce the vault wall, reinforce the bar walls, reinforce the leftmost wall into the hallway, and reinforce the rightmost one as well. Then, reinforce the wall on the left, right here, go into landing and reinforce the left bore wall, and then if you plan on roaming, you can reinforce these two walls here, or you can put a second reinforcement on this wall here, and save the last reinforcement for something else. Now let's go over the holes. First of all, you want head holes leading into study. Not only does it make it almost impossible for players to actually push study, but if they end up not pushing study and they go backside, you can sit in study and use these head holes to watch the door. Also, make a rotate in sight, make head holes all across this wall, or if you have a C4, you can make it a vaultable rotate so that you actually have a way to throw your C4, and you have a way to rotate even if it is just a little dangerous. Also, make feet holes all across this wall, and this wall as well. You can open up this hatch as well, so if you hear them get on the 90 window here, you can run out that window. And then I recommend putting feet holes here, so that if you have a guy sitting in statue and they hop in the bore window, you can easily shoot them when they do that. But that's pretty much it for this site. Moving on to the other second floor site, let's go over statue and trophy. First of all, reinforce 2 out of 3 of the statue walls. Then reinforce 2 out of 3 of the trophy walls. Reinforce 2 out of 3 of the bathroom walls. Reinforce the rightmost bore wall as well. Then, if you're roaming in Aviator and Games, which I do recommend, you can reinforce the 2 bar walls, and reinforce the leftmost Aviator wall with head holes next to that. Speaking of holes, let's go over the ones for the site. First of all, you want feet holes next to this reinforcement here, so that if you have a guy in statue, he can watch the window hop in like I talked about earlier. Then you want head holes next to these walls, which in combination with the head holes for closet, give you a long angle into the closet hop in. Then make a rotate for sight from trophy to Astro. And finally, barricade this window here, so the players on this window can't use these head holes against you, and then barricade this window here, so the player on this window can't ace the wall open. And that is it for this site. Now finally, let's move on to one of the most underrated bomb sites in all of Rainbow Six Siege, that being dining and kitchen on the first floor of Villa. After shooting that dumbass radio out, let's go over the reinforcements. First of all, reinforce the pantry wall, then reinforce the middle china wall, reinforce the stairway wall, reinforce the rightmost laundry wall, reinforce the 2 museum walls, also reinforce this wall and museum as well, then come all the way upstairs and reinforce these 3 statue walls. Reinforcing these 3 walls here allows your players to actually stay in statue and also play a little bit in bathroom, so if they try to take vert, you will at least know about it and be protected when they do so that you can swing for free kills. Now let's go over the holes for this site. First of all, you want head holes on the left here and a rotate on the right. I've seen a rotate on the right and head holes on the left too. It doesn't really matter. I've seen it both ways. Then make feet holes all along the laundry wall. This will allow you to see anybody that's actually pushing up into laundry. Make a rotate in sight right here, and then barricade the pantry door if you don't plan on roaming on the pantry stairs. Barricading this door makes it to where if they get on this window and they shoot through this dresser, they can't get an angle onto anybody in Tetris without you knowing about it at least. And that is it for this site. Now let's move on to one of my favorite maps in the entire game, Cafe Dostoevsky. Going over the reinforcements first, make sure you reinforce these red walls. Then reinforce the freezer walls. Reinforce this bathroom wall, reinforce this cocktail wall, and reinforce this bathroom wall. Some people like to put the reinforcement on the left instead of the right. I've seen it done both ways. I personally like this reinforcement because if I have a rotate right here and there's head holes, this rotate becomes completely unusable. And it also gives them a huge line of sight onto my other rotate over there if I have head holes here, so I don't like it. And a lot of people complain, well, if you have head holes there, they can just see into the hallway. But you have this entire wall of cover right here, so it's not really that big of a deal. That is pretty much it for the necessary reinforcements, though. If you're playing inside a cigar box, you can reinforce this hatch as well, but you don't really need to reinforce much for this site. The one thing you do need to do for this site is make a lot of holes, though. Firstly, you want to take care of all of the wood on this bar. Then get rid of the wood on this bar, just enough to where, like, you can actually get the default plant uncovered. Then you're going to put feet holes across this wall here, which make it to where they can't actually thermite this wall open. But also, if you have a guy behind the pixel deployable shield, he can prone and deny anybody coming from New Hatch. Keep in mind as well, you also want to rotate right here, and a crouch height rotate right here. Optionally as well, you can break these wooden beams and make yourself a secondary rotate like this, but at that point, that's just personal preference. The rest of the site setup is completely cut out for you. You can make optional holes here and then get on the bar and watch people on the plant or watch people on the skylight. You really can do whatever you want here. You're just meant to open up as many angles as possible to make it very difficult for them to do pretty much anything. Now let's move down to the kitchen, where first you're going to reinforce the 2 main walls to bakery here. Then reinforce the rightmost red wall here. Reinforce the second wall like this. Then come into freezer and reinforce the freezer walls. Come into prep and reinforce the rightmost prep wall. Come into bakery and reinforce this small bake wall. And then also make sure that you come upstairs and reinforce the hatch. The final reinforcement is pretty optional. You can either fully reinforce the red wall, or if you're playing inside of a restaurant, you can also reinforce this restaurant wall. Now the reason you don't fully reinforce this red wall here is because you actually sometimes will put head holes on it like this. You'll also want feet holes beside this reinforcement in the site, and you'll want feet holes in prep right here as well. Optionally, if you're playing inside of whiskey or restaurant like I said earlier, you want to rotate right here. That way, if they start coming through, you know, your restaurant window, your brown stairs, your reception, maybe even your white hall, you can back out to sight without exposing yourself to this giant hallway. But if you're not going to play in whiskey and do this, I actually recommend that you leave this soft to not give them a huge angle into the bomb site. But that is completely it for the kitchen bomb site. Let's go over the final site, which is actually reading and fireplace. I don't actually recommend going fireplace and mining. Mining is a really hard site to defend because there's just so many soft walls you have to worry about, and there's a window directly on site that they have a balcony for. So instead, please trust me on this one, go reading. To do this, first reinforce these 2 reading walls. Then reinforce the rightmost reading wall leading into the rotate here. Reinforce the leftmost fireplace wall. Come into fireplace and reinforce the right side of this train wall. Come into train and reinforce these 2 mining walls. Then what you're going to do is come upstairs and actually reinforce this cocktail wall. Then you're going to reinforce these 2 freezer walls. And then you're going to barricade this double door here, preferably with a castle. Then you're going to open up the hatch behind you. You're going to open up the hatch to fireplace. And then make your way downstairs, because you have a lot of shotgun site setup to do. First of all, make a vaultable rotate on the right side of this wall. This vaultable rotate allows you to be able to sit inside a fireplace and watch the white stairs and also watch bottom white stairs. It's also great if you use it in tandem with this rotate here to watch the site window or to nitro anybody trying to plant behind the bomb. I don't know why I have... Oh, I'm playing smoke, not mute. That's why. You get the idea, though. Then make feet holes all across this wall, all while ADS, so that you also subsequently make feet holes in the other wall across from it. And then also make feet holes halfway across this wall. You only make it halfway across because if people are inside this hallway, they'll be able to catch you rotating from not only this archway, but also through here as well. This rotate is good because the issue with this archway rotate is they can easily see you from that window on the site if they're holding it, but they can't see you on this rotate. So you can go up through this rotate, get close, and kill the person on the window. But that is pretty much it for this site setup. I know that this was pretty complicated, so let's move on to a much less complicated map. And that being Canal. Let's go over the top floor first. You obviously want to reinforce the 2 main walls and the wall next to that. Then go into the other bomb site and reinforce all 4 of these 90 walls. Then reinforce these 2 green stairs walls. And optionally, you can reinforce this wall right here as well. The reason you would do this is because if they get on the sky bridge or on this window, they can easily shoot through this wall onto anybody in sight. And it also pairs well nicely next to the default site rotate right here, so that you can rotate a lot safer behind a reinforcement. Some people put the rotate on this side of the wall, so I mean, if you want to do that, you can. I personally just think it's a lot more dangerous because of Skybridge and this window, but it is personal preference at the end of the day. Something that isn't personal preference, though, is these feet holes right next to this reinforcement. You also want head holes right here, maybe even an optional rotate if you're feeling a bit risky. And then the final non-negotiable are the feet holes right here. These make it to where if they push up in Skybridge, you can have a guy in sight, looking, and shooting at them. You also can put a hole in this wall to contest the main wall if you want to be inside of server. But that is completely it for this bomb site. Let's move to the basement now, where first you're going to reinforce this closet wall here. Then you're going to reinforce the left side of this wall here. You're going to reinforce the leftmost wall inside of the site. Reinforce these 2 walls into the hallway. Reinforce the left side of the scuba wall. Then you go upstairs and get the main hatch. After getting the main hatch, you're going to go into gym and get the gym hatch. The last 3 reinforcements are pretty optional, but what I'll see a lot of players doing is reinforcing this wall here, and then putting feet holes all along it just like this. They'll also reinforce this wall to kind of cover them if they're playing upstairs, but again, all completely optional. Now that we've gone over some feet holes, let's go over the rest of the holes for sight. The reason we left this wall soft is because you're actually going to put holes across the top of it like this. This will allow you to sit deep in sight and watch the staircase for absolutely free. You're also going to make a rotate right here, and put head holes all along this wall to help you watch scuba. And that, my friends, is it for the basement site. Now let's move on to the final bomb site of Canal that I'm going to show you in this video, and that is Coast Guard. Now I will say I don't play this site a lot, so I don't know the actual default site setup with 100% certainty, but I will tell you what I do know about it. The first of which being that you're going to reinforce this site wall here. Then you're going to reinforce this wall. You're going to come into this room and reinforce the 2 green stairs walls. And then you're going to reinforce these 2 walls. Whether you reinforce this wall is up to you. I see a lot of people put rotates here, so that's kind of what I like to do, especially because you have this half wall that you can use as cover to then peek and contest the museum. And if you're wasting 2 reinforcements on this wall, that kind of tells me that you're holding this room, which further reinforces the fact that you should probably put a rotate here and try to hold it. Anyways, let's make our way upstairs though, because you're going to reinforce this site hatch, which I know a lot of people keep open, but hear me out, and these 2 exterior walls. Now, the reason that I don't like to keep this hatch open is because as an attacker, I find a lot of the times that I take vert super easily on this site, because defenders don't really prioritize it, which means if this hatch is open by default, I get a direct line of sight into the bomb site, and I get a free smoke plant if I drop the hatch. And because I, as a solo queue player, know that I can't rely on my teammates to hold vert, I'm just going to reinforce that hatch. If you want a hatch that you can use to get back to site, all you have to do is instead open this hatch. This hatch doesn't lead directly into the bomb site, but it also is close enough to the bomb site that you can use it to rotate back a lot safer. But now that we've gone over 1 rotate back to site, let's go over the rest. You optionally can put that rotate that I talked about earlier right here. And I also recommend breaking that glass by vaulting through it so that they don't get a sound cue when you try to do it in the actual game. Also, you want to put a rotate on this wall, and then make your way upstairs to optionally put a rotate on this wall as well. And as long as you hold vert for this bomb site, you should be fine with the site setup that I've provided for you. Next up, let's talk about the map of Bank. This site setup has a lot of variance in it, But first, let's go over the reinforcements. You want to get the main wall on the left. Then you want to go to the right and get the leftmost wall here. Reinforce these 2 janitor walls. Reinforce these elevator walls. And this is where the variance comes in. You can reinforce whatever you want for the final 2 reinforcements. It can be these 2 walls if you have a deployable shield player playing right here. It can be these 2 walls if you're worried about them rushing up white. You could reinforce these trump walls, these trump walls, or you could reinforce one of these site walls, maybe reinforce next to the rotate we'll talk about earlier. You get the idea. You can just do pretty much anything you want with these last few reinforcements. You can't, however, have any variance in the rotates because you need a rotate right here in janitor, and you need a rotate into conference. You also need to have feet holes on this wall here, and you need head holes right here. Then make sure that you come into trump and barricade these 3 windows. I like to keep this window unbarricaded because the only window they can get on to shoot through here is this one, and I like being able to rotate to banana through a window. But that's pretty much it for the necessary site setup. Yes, you can make other rotates, you can make other head holes, but it's completely up to you at that point. A site that's much simpler is the basement. First of all, come upstairs. You have a lot to reinforce. You need this open hatch. You need this office hatch. You need the elevator hatch. And you need the lobby hatch. Next, come into site. You want the site wall reinforced. You want this site wall reinforced. You want the garage wall reinforced. You want either the left or right side of the site wall reinforced here. And the final 2 reinforcements are pretty much personal preference. You can use one of them to reinforce the site wall here. And then for the last one, either reinforce this site wall or reinforce this hatch. Now, I personally like reinforcing that hatch because next you're going to make head holes across this site wall. Now that we're talking about site setup, you're going to then make a vaultable rotate here. Then make a rotate on the left side of this wall. If you don't and you make it on the right, they can get an angle from the site through this rotate onto that rotate. So putting on the left is crucial. I also like making a rotate somewhere on this wall. If you make it kind of thin, they can't see it from the hatch, so they won't expect it if they drop the hatch and you shoot them from here and then suddenly you're over here. Next, make holes on either side of the reinforcement you put down just so that you can watch the staircase behind you. And then what I like to do, if no one's playing on this wall, is to actually put head holes all across this wall here, so that I can sit behind the bomb chassis and have a long angle onto the site door or onto the head holes inside of server. Finally, barricade this single door here, and that is all of the necessary site setup for the basement of bank. Finally, let's talk about open area. The first thing you need reinforced is all 4 of these quad walls. Then come into the hallway and reinforce the right side of this wall. If you don't do that, they can make feet holes right here and get a long angle into sight, which I know that your solo queue random teammates are not going to expect, so I just like to protect them a little bit. Next, come upstairs. You're going to reinforce the janitor hatch, and you're going to reinforce the stock hatch. Then, reinforce this site wall, then come into here and reinforce the 2 right side walls like this. And that is it for the reinforcements. You might be wondering why I didn't get the 3rd wall right here, and that's because you're actually going to make a rotate. You might be wondering why I'm making a rotate on this wall when the attackers can easily get on it, but they can't, because you're actually going to be extending into these 2 rooms here and trying to hold attackers off. If you want to do this safely, all you have to do is barricade this window as well, so they can't get in the closet and shoot you when they get into the building. And then I'd also recommend putting feet holes on the left side of this wall right here. This lets you shoot anybody coming down the marble stairs or up the marble stairs, but also if you're on the marble stairs, you can see into anybody walking in from this door. Next, come into sight and open up this hatch. This will make it easy for you to drop into the basement and rotate and flank people if you're a roamer. And then finally make a crouching rotate on the left side of this wall here, so that you can rotate into sight much easier from the office. Finally, you're going to put feet holes across this wall, so that anybody can watch people hopping into the window, and then that's pretty much it for the necessary site setup on this bomb site. I would go over this site, but since so little people play it, I'm not even gonna bother. I am gonna bother turning my face cam off. I accidentally realized I had that on. I don't know why. I have no idea why that was on. But let's talk about the next map, which is gonna be top floor border. I don't know. Why is this map dark all of a sudden? Is this a glitch? I don't know. Anyways, first of all, you're gonna reinforce the two main walls here. Then come into archives and reinforce this site wall. Reinforce the site wall on the right. Then you're going to do something that a lot of people do not do, which is reinforcing this triple wall in office. Then come into 90 and reinforce this wall here. Reinforce the rightmost side wall here, not the left. Although I will say it is personal preference, but I'll explain why I prefer this side later. And then the final reinforcement I forgot to mention is this one inside of archives. Now there's two main things that I want to go over. Why, first of all, did I not put a reinforcement right there in 90, but I put that one? And then why did I put this reinforcement on the right instead of the left? Well, first of all, if you're in small office, having feet holes right here is great. Because if they're on the door, like this, you can easily see them when they walk up through a very tight angle like this. I know it's reversible, but I like taking the risk here because I'll sit and play this all around. Also, if you reinforce the left side here, they can easily plant behind the reinforcement, and there's nothing you can do about it. They can plant behind this reinforcement, that's true, but at least they'll have to walk by your feet holes to get there. And then also, it's increasingly easy for people to just swing and shotgun people here than it is to swing and shotgun people there. Let's talk about the next elephant in the room. Why did I reinforce this and not this? The entire reason people reinforce this wall here is because if you don't, they can get an angle all the way through the hallway, right? Well, they can just get next to the reinforcement, right here, and get the exact same thing. So I find most of the time, this reinforcement is useless. Instead, I like this reinforcement, because the meta has shifted to where people will make a rotate right here, and they'll actually play inside of this CC box right here. This reinforcement will protect them from anybody that's actually inside of top E stairs, which is why I like this reinforcement, but I don't really necessarily like this one. Also, people commonly will reinforce these walls. I don't like that. If you have a prox alarm or barbed wire on top metal, you can easily shoot through this and get a free kill. This one right here doesn't really do anything because I don't find that people will ash through this anyways, and most of the time you won't have somebody playing inside of fountain. They'll either be playing in office, or if they get flushed out, they'll be playing inside of archives, and neither one of those positions have to worry about this wall being opened. And finally, I reinforced this wall and not this wall because I actually like to put either feet holes or head holes on this wall so that I can sit in sight and watch them walking in through the double door. It's a pretty unorthodox setup, but I promise you this one is much more solo queue friendly, and you need to start trying it in your ranked games. Next up is vent and workshop for the first floor of border. Starting off, you want this wall reinforced, and you want the two walls next to it reinforced as well. Then come into the hallway and reinforce this wall, because if you don't, people will get behind this wall and open up an angle through it to shoot anybody inside of the bomb site. They can do the same thing from this wall right here, but it really only looks into the server, and you can sit behind that server to not be in danger, so I don't really like to waste reinforcements on it. Then come into jail and reinforce the two jail walls. Once you've done that, make your way upstairs. We're going to reinforce the archives hatch. You're going to reinforce the two armory walls. And then the last reinforcement is completely optional. You can either, A, fully reinforce this wall, or you can put a rotate on this wall instead. I like to do this because then I can extend into bathroom right here and play this hallway so they can't just rush and take square and passport for free, which is really powerful, by the way. And then you can save your last reinforcement for either this wall here or this wall here. Personally, I like to do this wall because the entire issue of having this wall soft is they can open it if they're in square and get an angle onto anybody in sight. But if you're holding the angle from bathroom, that doesn't really matter because they won't be able to do that anyways. Whereas reinforcing this wall stops people from swinging this door and getting an angle behind the desk. And it stops people from this door from getting an angle behind the wall a lot better than it does with this wall. Now for the actual site setup, we're going to make a rotate on this wall here. And then we're going to make feet holes all along this wall. Then you're going to open up this hatch. And that is it for this site setup. For the final site we'll be going over, we're going to go over tellers and bathroom. For the reinforcements, get these two bathroom walls. Then get the two site walls here and here. Then you're going to come upstairs and reinforce this site hatch. And then come into archives and reinforce this site hatch. Next, come back downstairs. The reason you got that hatch is because you're going to be extending into workshop. If you want to extend into workshop, I recommend reinforcing these three walls. Then for reasons I talked about earlier, reinforce this wall. And that's it for the reinforcements. Because you're extending into workshop, you obviously want to rotate back into site. You'll also want to rotate in between sites. This can be crouched or vaultable, personal preference there. You'll also want head holes across this wall, so that you can sit inside of workshop and contest the window or the plant if you need to. And then you're going to put feet holes all across this wall. For the final site setup, you're going to make a rotate right here. Then you're going to barricade this double door, and you're going to barricade these two site windows. Those two barricades are optional, but if you're sitting inside, I like to have them. Now what this barricade and this rotate does is if they want to be able to push you inside of workshop, they won't be able to go to the right, which only gives them two options. They can either A, push through this door, where you're probably going to have a prox alarm or barbed wire on anyways, or they can push through this rotate. Most attackers will opt to push through the rotate since there's no intel on it, and because you put a rotate there as bait, you're just going to sit and hold this angle. You don't have to worry about your left, because there's going to be information on it, and you don't have to worry about this left either, because you'll have this reinforcement to sit behind. And also, you'll have a barricade that prevents them from running that way anyways. So all you have to do is sit and hold this angle, and you'll be able to extend here pretty easily. But that's it for border. Let's move on to the next map, which is consulate. Now, this is a bit weird because the meta for this map is still trying to be figured out by most ranked players, so I might get a few things different from what you think you need to do. So just know that within time, I might be wrong, you might be wrong, who knows. One thing I think we can all agree on, though, is getting this closet wall reinforced first. It's also pretty standard to reinforce the wall next to the site door, and then reinforcing the right side of this double right here is a must for me as well. Reinforcing this wall allows you to actually play inside of reception without having to worry about anybody on the closet door shooting you. If you plan on holding admin as well, reinforcing this admin triple is a must also. Next up, a pretty underrated reinforcement spot is reinforcing these two walls as well. Now, some people like to put feed holes on these walls. I don't. The issue with feed holes is that you have to constantly be watching them to get any value at all. And if you're leaving this wall soft, some Ashe or Zofia player is just going to breach this wall open. And now they have a long line of sight from admin onto the site. And if you are solo queuing, you're not going to watch these feed holes either because you're going to be doing whatever your team needs you to do because you're solo queuing. So I like to reinforce these two walls instead. And then for the final reinforcement, I personally like to either reinforce this wall or I'll reinforce one of the bathroom walls. If you plan on playing in bathroom, you can reinforce the right here and then put head holes here, or you can reinforce this wall. The reason I like to reinforce this wall is because kids can get on the bathroom window right here and shoot through this wall to anybody trying to rotate right here or play on these head holes. Speaking of head holes, let's go over the site setup. First, you obviously want head holes here so that you can play on them. Then you can put head holes across this wall with maybe a reinforcement next to it. You can also put head holes on this admin wall here as well so that you can sit inside of admin and actually shoot people coming in through the door. And then finally, if you didn't reinforce this wall, you can put feet holes on it. So if they come rushing up Visa stairs, you can shoot them through the wall. And then I like to do something super weird. If you don't want to do it, that's perfectly fine, but I'll barricade off spiral double door. None of my teammates ever roam and then come up spiral or play on top spiral anyways, so barricading this just makes it to where they can't rush up spiral and surprise people, which happens a lot in your ranked games, so you can do that if you want to, completely up to you. But that's pretty much it for the second floor. If you thought I made you mad with this site setup, then you're gonna hate my really weird site setup for the basement. First of all, obviously, reinforce the two site walls. Then reinforce the right side of this wall, reinforce this wall for back site, and reinforce the shower wall. Then reinforce the left side of this wall here. I've seen people reinforce the right. You can do that. I just don't like doing that because this reinforcement actually protects me from the hallway if I want to sit behind pipes. Whereas this one doesn't because then they can open this wall and shoot me. But even with this reinforcement, you can still see into the hallway if you want to, and it actually gives you tighter pixels than the other way around would. If you want to do the other way though, you can. I just don't like it personally. Then reinforce the right side of this wall. Come upstairs and reinforce the site hatch. Then reinforce the Visa hatch. Then I recommend coming into basement and reinforcing this wall. I don't really like reinforcing this hatch because if they drop this hatch, it's way too dangerous for them, so they won't do it most of the time anyways. And the same thing can be said for this hatch as well. I like to reinforce this wall because it's much easier to hold a single doorway than it is to leave this wall unreinforced and to sit all the way in tunnel when they have a wall right here and an open hatch and an open wall behind you. It's a little unorthodox, I know, but I found in solo queue environments, this site setup in particular gets my teammates killed the least, especially with the holes I'm about to show you. First of all, you want holes next to this reinforcement, holes next to this reinforcement, a hole or many holes next to this reinforcement, holes next to this reinforcement, a rotate right here, and a vaultable rotate right here. And that is it for this site setup. Let's move on to the last side of this video, which is going to be the two first floor sites. First of all, you want to reinforce the site hatch. If you don't, they can get below it, and make sure you can't rotate on the rotate that we'll talk about later. Then come upstairs and reinforce the site hatch. Come into site and reinforce this single wall for the site. Reinforce these two site walls. Reinforce these two site walls. And reinforce these two site walls. Then come back to yellow stairs and reinforce the yellow stairs wall. Now let's go over the holes for the site. First, you want feet holes along the closet wall here. Then you want to rotate on the left side of this wall. Then you want holes on this wall here, because you're going to sit in sight, and then you can use this to shoot anybody coming in through the window, or coming up the Visa stairs. And that's it for this site. Moving on, let's talk about the next map, which is Skyscraper. First of all, let's go over the karaoke site and the T site. Most players set this site up wrong, probably including you. First of all, reinforce these two T walls. Reinforce the left side of this wall, reinforce the right side of this wall, and the right side of this wall. Then come into Geisha, reinforce the Geisha wall here, and the inner Geisha wall here, so they can't shoot you from the window. Next, reinforce the left side Geisha wall here. We'll talk about why in a second. And for the final two reinforcements, reinforce the right side T walls here. A few of these might seem weird, but when I explain the site setup, you'll understand. Speaking of which, open up feet holes right here. These feet holes allow you to sit inside here and watch terrace. Then make a head hole right here. Now, behind this reinforcement, you can hold a pixel angle into the hallway. This head hole also allows you to look through these head holes to watch anybody walking into the site door from Dragon. You can optionally put a head hole here to watch the drum door and a head hole here to watch the brown stairs. And then you'll finally want to rotate from Geisha into the site. This site rotate, paired up with this site rotate, allow anybody to be able to hold either staircase. Finally, you're going to put head holes halfway across this wall, and head holes across this wall. These head holes make it to where you can deny the plant from through these head holes, and through these head holes. You can also optionally make holes through this dresser, to watch anybody walking up to Dragon, or you can sit inside of Karaoke and watch the same thing from a distance. But either way, that is how you set up the top floor of Karaoke and Tea Room. Let's move on to the next site, which is going to actually be the other second floor site. Obviously, reinforce the main walls, then reinforce the middle site wall. You reinforce the exterior wall here, reinforce these two left-hand side walls, and reinforce the top house wall. Then you're going to reinforce the right side of this dragon wall, but not the left, and we'll come back to why later. Because you're actually going to come upstairs and reinforce these two T walls. When you reinforce these two T walls and you barricade this door, with the option of barricading this door, now they have no way of pushing back sight without making a bunch of noise breaking a barricade. And these two reinforcements make it wildly safe for you to cross onto the bridge without them knowing about it or being able to shoot you through the reinforcement. Because that's the entire point of the strat. You're going to extend into Dragon, make a hole here so that you can watch the door, and then also extend into Drum. The reason we left this wall soft is because you're actually going to make a rotate for yourself due to the fact that you're extending. And the cool thing about rotating through here and not the door is because this door is exposed to anybody repelled on this balcony, while this rotate isn't. Finally, you'll make holes right here, and you'll make holes right here. I also like to get on top of this table and make a hole right here so I can watch inside of Terrace when they walk in the door, but that's just me. That is how you properly set up the other second floor site for top floor skyscraper. But now, let's move on to the bottom floor sites. The first of which being the bedroom bathroom site. You'll reinforce these shower walls here, then reinforce these two coat walls. You'll then reinforce the left side site wall here, then come upstairs, reinforce the house stairs wall, and reinforce the office walls. Don't forget to get the site hatch as well, and the last reinforcement is optional. You can either put it next to the rotate we'll talk about later, or you can put it on this wall here. For the site setup, make sure you have a rotate somewhere on this wall. I like putting it on the left side here because it allows people to sit inside of bathtub and get some crazy angles onto the site. Then I'd recommend putting in a Rooney gate or barricading this window and you should be all good. And finally, let's go over barbecue and kitchen for the bottom floor. First of all, reinforce this bathroom wall. Then reinforce these two site walls. Reinforce the site hatch. Reinforce the exterior geisha wall. And the interior one as well. I also like reinforcing these two walls. And reinforcing this left side wall because you're putting it next to a rotate. I honestly like to leave this wall alone as people don't really use it that often. So my final reinforcement goes on this wall for geisha. For site setup, you can put head holes in the number of these walls, or take away this reinforcement and put feet holes on it. And then you can make a secondary rotate here as well. Or put it on the left side. I've seen both. It does not matter at all. Our next map is going to be Theme Park. First, you want to reinforce these two maintenance walls. Then reinforce these two barrels walls. Then get the two yellow walls. And then come to bottom dragon and get these two dragon to maintenance hallway walls. Make sure you reinforce the hatch as well. And for the final reinforcement, I will always recommend getting the left side barrels wall here. If you don't, they can get a huge angle into split. So if you want to play in there, you just can't. But if you reinforce this, now you can. In terms of necessary site setup, there is only one thing you have to do, and that is putting feet holes along this wall here. And that's it. It's a very simple site, and as long as you sit inside of the objective and just don't roam and hold two doorways, you will win every single time. Let's move on to my next favorite site, which is actually Initiation on top floor. First of all, you're going to reinforce the two main walls right here. Now, whether you reinforce this wall or put a rotate here is honestly personal preference to if you want to be aggressive or if you want to be passive. Personally though, I actually like to put a rotate here. Now the issue with putting a rotate here is that if attackers get this wall open, they can easily go through this rotate and get onto site, and this is a huge issue, which is why our next reinforcement is actually going to be on this wall. Reinforcing this wall completely takes away this issue, and if you're ever playing Cade, you can put a Cade claw below so they can't shoot it when they get on the yellow stairs, making the one thing that's dangerous about putting this rotate here completely gone, and now you can use it to be aggressive whenever you want, and really help this wall stay closed. With 3 reinforcements out of the way, let's go over the next one, which is on the left side of this wall here. With a reinforcement there, and a reinforcement on the left side of this wall, you make it almost impossible for people to push cash for reasons we'll talk about later. For now though, come into initiation and reinforce these 2 walls. Then reinforce this wall here and this wall here. You can put head holes here as well, but I don't really like to do that because I never find myself actually using them. And finally, this wall right here. Now let's go over some of the necessary site setup. First of all, leave this site, because you need to have this wall completely open every single round you play here. The reason you have this wall completely open is because if it's completely closed, a thermite can actually get on this breach and blow open this wall even if it's electrified due to something called proximity explosions. You don't want this to happen, especially in the higher ranks, so just open this wall fully. In terms of actual site setup, the first thing you'll need is a site rotate right here. Then put head holes next to this wall, and put head holes next to this wall. And that's literally all you need to do for this site. Theme Park is a super simple map. A site a bit more complicated though is Bunk and Daycare, which is right next to the site we just talked about. First, reinforce these 2 initiation walls. Then make absolutely sure that you reinforce these 2 walls as well. A lot of people forget to do this. Don't be those people. Reinforce 3 out of 4 of this quad wall here. But don't reinforce this wall for a reason I'll talk about later. For now though, reinforce this wall in the middle. Put a rotate on the right. And put head holes on the left. I see some people doing it the other way around. Don't do that, and I'll explain why later. Next up, reinforce the middle site wall here. This might seem like a weird one, but I'll explain why it's actually pretty good later. And then finally, reinforce this cafe wall here. I've seen people open this wall, and then what they'll do is they'll come all the way to Vault, and they'll open that wall, so they get a super long line of sight onto that door. If you want to do that, that's fine. Just know that, like, you're probably going to eventually have to fall back off of that, and having a rotate here might hurt you, because they can get on this ledge and hold a long angle at this site. But if you're willing to take that risk, by all means, I actually like that strat a lot. With it out of the way though, let's go over the remaining side setup. Now I know that it talks about putting a rotate here and head holes here. I put a rotate on the right side because this reinforcement will cover me, and then the bomb protects me from this door over here, and then this wall protects me from this door. If you were to make a rotate on the left, neither one of those things would be true, and because you're putting head holes right here as well, the head holes would also expose this rotate. The reason you put head holes here is because you can sit on the door and hold a long angle onto the cafe door, while also being able to lean to the right and do the same thing, and they'll never know which one you're going to peek, which just makes it way more dangerous for them to push. You can also be in sight and use these head holes to watch yellow stairs, to watch this wall, to watch this wall, so it just opens up a lot of aggressive angles that you can utilize as a defender. Now, the reason that I reinforced this wall and not the one on the left is because the entire reason you'd reinforce either of these walls is because there is a window that they can use to get through these walls onto site. Now, if they were to go through these walls, it wouldn't be that much of a big of a deal, right? Because you're going to be behind the bomb, behind the couch, and this reinforcement will actually cover that. And if they're on this window, this refrigerator covers a lot of the angles this wall would provide, so it's not really that big of a deal. However, they could use this wall to gain way more lines of sight, and it would also expose your rotate over there if they got a long enough angle. So I always reinforce this wall and not this one. Finally, though, you're going to want to put a rotate somewhere on this wall. People put it on the right. Don't do that because I can shoot it from the window. Put it on the left instead, and then you'll be able to rotate into Arcade Hallway if you wish. And because nobody goes Drug Lab, I'm not going to waste my time with that site, and that's pretty much it for Theme Park. Now let's move on to our next map, which is, I think, one of the most overhated maps in this entire game, and that is Lair. First of all, reinforce these 2 main walls. Then reinforce the left side of this wall that's across from the main walls, but do not reinforce the right side. Move into the hallway and reinforce the right side of this wall, or you can do the left side. I've seen both. Either or works. Come back into site and reinforce these 2 main walls as well. Make your way into server and reinforce these 2 server walls, and then reinforce the right side bathroom wall right here. This reinforcement prevents anybody from getting onto either of these windows and getting a long angle into 90. For the final reinforcement, you can either double reinforce the bathroom wall, or you can reinforce this right side wall in server right here. The reason you reinforce this wall is because you're going to have a rotate right next to it, just like this. I've seen people make this vaultable. You can make this vaultable. I don't really see the reason for it, but maybe that's because I'm uneducated. Let me know down in the comments if you know why they do that, but for now, I'm going to make this a crouching rotate. Then put head holes all across this wall right here. Put head holes all across this wall, and put head holes all across this wall. You also want a crouch size rotate right here, and you want it small enough and to the right enough that it actually gets semi-covered by this desk. And that's it for this site setup. It's actually super simple. Now quickly, let's go over the basement. I'm gonna be honest, y'all, I really hate this site. I think it's the worst site out of all of the sites in Lair, yes, including the first floor sites. This place is just a labyrinth. There's way too much to reinforce and way too many attacker sightlines that they can get literally from spawn. So if you want my professional advice about this site, it's not to set it up, it's to literally just not go here, but I'll show you how to set it up anyways. First of all, go into armory and reinforce the hatch. Go upstairs into reception and reinforce this hatch. Come back downstairs and reinforce this wall. Reinforce the left side and reinforce the right side. Make your way into this room and reinforce these walls. Then make your way into big garage and reinforce the big garage walls. Next, reinforce the rockets wall. And then finally, reinforce this wall here. For the site setup, make sure you make a rotate on this wall. I would do it on the left side as it's the least exposed to either one of these doors. And because of this case here, it's not exposed to that door either. The only thing it might be exposed to, though, is our next piece of site setup, which is going to be head holes all across this wall. You honestly could leave this soft or put feet holes on it. I like to do this because I'm a little bit of an aggressive defender, but that's completely up to you. And that's pretty much it for this site. There's a lot of doors and head holes that you have to worry about, which is why I don't really like this site in the first place. But if you don't mind that, then I guess this is how you set the site up. A site I think is a lot better, though, is actually the weapons and armory site. And the first thing you're going to do when you come here is actually reinforce these two walls. Just like that. Then come upstairs and reinforce this site hatch. Then reinforce these two site walls. And reinforce these two site walls. Next, reinforce this middle site wall here. And I forgot to say this earlier, but your last two reinforcements are going to come upstairs on this main wall. I'm putting these here because it's actually kind of important that you main top floor control because they can play vert right here, which is above the site if you didn't know. So making sure they don't at least flank you from the right over there is pretty crucial if you're playing inside of this hallway. Now let's go over the site setup. First of all, pop this hatch. This makes it to where if you want to go downstairs for a late round flank or just because it's dangerous to be in sight, you can do so. What I do next is make a rotate right here. This rotates nice because you get a little bit of an angle onto the site door here if you want to have one. And as long as this wall stays closed because we're playing Kate or Bandit, this should be pretty safe to use most of the time. Optionally as well, you can make head holes here. Especially if you're not reinforcing this wall, I think this is great. And other than that, you don't really need much else to keep this site set up. One thing I do want to say about this site is there is a crazy angle you can put bulletproof gadgets. If you hop on top of this green case here, you look down and you go on this desk, go on this black case, and you crouch. You can get a vault prompt, stand in between the bomb and the black box, and look up, and you can put like a Maestro cam or a BP or anything crazy right here for absolutely free. And unless they know that lineup, they're not ever going to reach that. Now, I think this site is great, but I also think this site over here is great too. To play this site, all you have to do is reinforce these two site walls, and reinforce these two site walls. Then come into the other site and reinforce these two exterior walls. Then come into server and reinforce the server hatch. And then also get the R6 room hatch. Then come into CC and reinforce these two walls. And that's it for the reinforcements. First of all, though, you want to put a rotate right here, with optional holes right here as well. Now, I do think that when the meta shifts, you're actually going to end up having, like, head holes on this wall instead of a reinforcement. Because I think having a reinforcement on this wall is going to be crucial if you want anybody to sit behind this half wall. Or to have anybody in this site rotating through this door without getting shot by that exterior wall. Hell, people might even put the rotate on the left side so they can reinforce the right and not have to worry about the wall. I do think the meta in this room is actually going to shift. But for now, what I've seen most players do is what I've showed you just now, and it seems to work out just fine. If you want to as well, you can keep that hatch soft and then reinforce one of these two walls. That strategy works too. But with that out of the way, let's move on to our next map, Emerald Plains. Now, I brought you onto Dining and Kitchen because I actually do think this is the best site on the map in terms of, like, how you can defend it. So to show you why, let's first reinforce these freezer walls. Next, reinforce the right side of this wall here. Then come upstairs and reinforce these two walls. We'll go over why this is so important later. But for now, I want to talk about one thing, and that's this hatch. I do not like to reinforce this hatch, and I'll tell you why. The entire reason you reinforce a hatch is so that they can't open it. The only reason you don't want them to open it is because if they do, they'd seemingly get a bunch of angles in the site. But because you have this huge wall here, and you have a half wall here, the only angle they can get into sight is on wine and onto the wall. It's not much, so I don't really like to waste a reinforcement on it, especially when you can open up lines of sight above this wall that we're going to reinforce later, like this. And then you have a long angle onto anybody on the bathroom door, in the hallway, whatever it may be. I like using this hatch a lot, so I don't recommend reinforcing it. Now, we just talked about reinforcing this wall, and that's going to be the next thing that you do. And then finally, you're going to reinforce the middle wall right here. I don't know why I said finally. I totally forgot to mention that you have to reinforce these orange walls, but you get the idea. Now, the reason that you don't actually reinforce these two walls is simple, and it's because you're going to put either head holes or feet holes all across this wall. Now, the reason you put feet holes across this wall, or head holes, is the same reason you would do it on, let's say, Kitchen on Coastline. It's very common for people to walk in through this hallway, or through this door, so being able to catch them off guard when they do so is pretty nice to do. The only issue with putting feet holes here is you want to put a rotate right next to it. And having feet holes next to a rotate is kind of just asking to get killed, which is why I personally like to make head holes instead, because at least you can crouch under the head holes and they won't be able to do anything about it. Either way, I don't like having this wall closed because it gives them a lot of free space that they can use. You also can put head holes here to contest the other head holes and get super long lines of sight. And then finally, you want to rotate right here. I don't like making this vaultable. I don't know why people do it. Don't do it. It doesn't really serve a purpose. Just make it crouchable or even standable so that it makes it a little bit easier for you to use this piece of cover while you're rotating. Now, I talked about earlier why having these two walls reinforced was so important, and that's because of what I'm about to show you. That's because you can open up this floor right here, and now you have a very long angle onto the main wall that nobody will ever expect. I get so many kills from this. I think I've literally gotten an ace from this angle alone. So I know it definitely works, and you need to try it the next time you go on this site, and it's why it's my most favorite site on this map. But let's move to the next site, which is going to be the top floor of Emerald Plains, specifically these two sides. First of all, reinforce this wall here, reinforce the left side wall like this, and reinforce this wall, but do not reinforce this wall, and I'll tell you why later. For now though, reinforce the right side of this wall, but don't reinforce the left. Come into statue and reinforce both of the statue walls. Reinforce these closet walls. And then you can either reinforce this wall here, or if you don't want to do what I'm just about to show you, reinforce this wall here. Now, the reason that I'm saying don't reinforce this wall is because I've seen some people in high elo put feet holes along this wall instead. What this does is it allows your player who's sitting right here to shoot anybody that comes in through the green door. I have actually died to this. And every time that I've used these feet holes after dying to it, I've gotten a free kill. It's very powerful, and I promise you it can win you games. Here's the issue with it though. You only want to do it once. The reason you only want to do it once is because once you do it, they're going to expect it. And all they have to do is get one guy on this door, and one guy on this window, and maybe even a guy on your stairs or on your closet wall, and then you are done for. You completely gave them a wall for absolutely free that they're going to get open with an ash, and now they have two lines of sight directly onto where they're going to plant, which will actually ruin your games. So I'd only recommend doing this once, and then once it works, don't do it again. But I've gotten a lot of free kills using it, so I'm giving you a challenge right now. The next time you get Emerald Plains, try the strategy out, and let me know in the comments how it goes. But for now, let's move on, because you're going to put a site rotate right here. You want to make it standable. The reason you want to make it standable is because if you do, it makes rotating from this door to this rotate, or vice versa, a lot faster for you when you're defending. But you do not want to make the next rotate standable. You actually want to make this crouchable. This rotate is great because it allows you to play inside of here, which you should be doing already anyways. That's why I had you reinforce 5 reinforcements here, because playing inside of here can single-handedly win you rounds. The reason I put the rotate on the right and not the left is because if you put it on the left, they can shoot it from that window. Whereas right here, they can't. Next up, put head holes all along this wall, just like this. This will make it to where if you want to play behind bar, you want to play behind the desk right here, you can easily look onto this window, but it does something even cooler. It makes it to where anybody who is in library who is roaming can easily also shoot that window, which I haven't seen anybody use, and I definitely recommend that they start now. But that is completely it for this site. Now let's move on to the next site, which is statue. Here's how you set it up. First of all, you want to reinforce the main closet wall here. That much is obvious. Then reinforce this ceramic wall, reinforce this wall, reinforce the orange walls, reinforce the left side of this wall for reasons we talked about earlier. Make sure you get the right side of this wall here too. This reinforcement will protect anybody in the closet from this window, but also if they get on this door, if anyone's bandit tricking the wall, they can't actually shoot the player in there. Then reinforce this middle wall here, and that's it for the reinforcements. Now you can see that I put head holes on this wall here. You actually want to do that, and you want to put feet holes next to this reinforcement as well. These head holes make it to where they cannot hop in through this window. You can also get an angle onto this door here behind a reinforcement for cover. With these feet holes as well, if they try to push in to the office, they can't because you can shoot them if they're in the orange hall. So it just makes it 10 times harder for them to push this side of the map here. I also like these head holes because you can sit right here or behind the bar and get angles onto the window like we talked about earlier for the other upstairs site. You're going to put a rotate right here for reasons we talked about earlier. And then you're also going to optionally put a rotate here as well. I would also recommend barricading this double door. And that's it for this site setup. It's actually pretty simple. One thing I won't be doing though is going over this site because it is atrocious. Never go this site. It's really, really bad. Now let's move on to one of my least favorite maps in the entire game, which is why I saved it for last, and that being Outback. Here's how you set up one of the worst defending sites on one of the worst maps in the game. First up, obviously, reinforce these 2 walls. Then reinforce the right side of this wall here. Never leave this open. If you have anybody playing behind the bomb chassis, this being soft is completely terrible because I can get on this window and shoot you for free. I've died way too many times to that angle. I'm always reinforcing this wall from now on. While we're at it, honestly, just reinforce the rest of this wall too. Next up, reinforce these 2 bull walls, but leave these 2 walls soft, and I'll explain later. Reinforce the left side of this wall, but not the right. Reinforce the left side of this wall in laundry, and reinforce the right side. Now, if you set up the site like I've told you to set up the site, you might notice a few problems. You don't have enough reinforcements to reinforce this wall, or a bathroom wall, which is why I think this site kind of sucked, and the downstairs one is better, but that's just my opinion. You might be wondering why I didn't reinforce this wall. Well, not only because we just wouldn't have enough reinforcements for actual basic site setup, but also I actually like to put feed holes on this wall. If you put feed holes on this wall, it makes it to where if anyone wants to push picnic over here and hide behind this table, they just can't do that. So putting feed holes here, at least a little bit lower than I did to where they can't see the door, is great. Next, put a rotate on the right side here. I see people putting it on the left side instead of the right, which is right here, but the only issue with that is they can see you from the bull door, so I don't really like to do that. Plus, nobody's going to stand in front of this doorway right here. If they do, they're just going to get shot. Trust me, I know, I died with it all the time, so this is a much safer rotate. You're also going to want to put a hole right here so that you can watch the wall as a defender, and you can watch the window once you lean just like this. As for what you're going to do with this wall, honestly, it's a complete mystery to most people. I like reinforcing this wall, but if you don't want to get a long angle thrown at you from bull, you kind of can't do that. So, like, it's kind of a lose-lose scenario, which is why I hate this map. Let's move into a site that's a little bit easier to defend, though, in my opinion. And that is the first floor objective. This site's pretty simple. Just reinforce these 2 default walls, then come upstairs and reinforce that site hatch. Now, the room that you reinforce that hatch for, you're going to reinforce the 2 walls in there as well. Then come to this wall right here and reinforce not the rightmost one, but the one next to that. And then reinforce the right side of this lizard wall here. The reason reinforcing this wall is important is because if you don't, they can get a long line of sight behind anybody behind this desk or the rotate that we'll talk about later. Which is why you need to do the exact same thing to the wall on the right as well. Finally, reinforce these 2 walls, and that's pretty much it. Let's go over the site rotates. First, you want one on the right, then you want one on the other side. Here's the thing though, you want to make it as thin as possible, just to minimize the amount of angles you have to worry about when it comes to this doorway here. Optionally as well, you can put holes above these walls, just so you can impact trick in case they ace it open. And that's pretty much it. Very, very simple. A site that is slightly harder to set up though would be Party. First of all, obviously reinforce the exterior walls. Then come into this hallway and reinforce the left side of this wall here, but don't reinforce the right. You're going to come into Bull and reinforce these 2 walls. Then come into Office and reinforce this right side wall here. I see some people reinforcing the left and putting feet holes on the right. You actually don't want to do that. You want to put feet holes on the left. The reason you don't want to put feet holes on the right is because if I'm an attacker and I want to actually go up, all I have to do is get on this purple box and open up a hole here and I can go into this site. But if it's reinforced, they can't do that. And all they can do is look through this. You also want to reinforce the left side of this garage wall here, not the right side. And then use your remaining 3 reinforcements on this wall here. Now, you might be wondering, why am I leaving this right one soft? Well, obviously, I'm out of reinforcements, but that's not that big of a deal. The only reason having this wall soft would be an issue is because they might be able to open it. But if you open up this hatch, now they can't do that, unless they have like a Buck or an Ash or a Zofia. But I see sometimes people will open it themselves, putting head holes right here. Putting head holes right here, paired up with a tall rotate right here as well, makes it pretty easy for you to look at anybody who's breaching this open or going into games through their connector door. I will say, this is a double-edged sword, so do it at your own risk, but I find I get a lot of free kills doing it. You also want to rotate on the left side here, with a hole right here, to watch the shark stairs or anybody coming in through the reception double, and then a small hole right here to watch anybody coming onto the picnic single. And that is how you set up this site. Now, because this site is terrible, I'm not even going to bother explaining it, and I'm just going to end the video. My name's Alka, check out this next video, and I hope I'll see you there. Later.